Hey guys, what's going on? This is Leo, going to do an update here on AMC. Uh, so we're just going to pick up from the last video talking about the Fibonacci time extensions. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor. So if you recall, just a quick refresher here, you take you're measuring the length in time that the bullish move took, and then you're projecting out from there. So, for example, the 50 here, which is this red line, would represent 50% of the time that the run up from here to here took, right? So we know based on fib time, the most likely time it would end would be around the golden zone, which it did here. Now I've done the same thing, assuming that this pattern and this pattern are the same, right? We get a 1, 2, we get a 1, 2 here. It ends right around that golden zone. Now I want you to pay attention here. So now these other lines that I've added, they don't really have much significance as far as fib time. To my knowledge, this is just something that I've taken note of if it's going to repeat in the same exact pattern. And so far it has, right? So if you look here at the golden zone, right, so it bottoms out, we get a little bit of a bump here, come back, and then we go up for the green, right? Well, that's exactly what we've done here. We're at the golden zone, and so what I've done here is I've measured from the low, right, so the end of the ending diagonal to the top of the high, and I'm projecting out. So right at the golden zone, we get that big move up, pulls back, big move up, pulls back. Now that we're at this green line, which is the 100% time projection, we're moving up again. We moved up again right around the green line. So going into tomorrow and next week, what could be happening is that, we get a little push up, right? With this green move here, we get a little pullback, same as, excuse me, same as what happened in the past. And then, around November 11th would be when the party kicks off, assuming this pattern repeats. And so far, you can see how precise it is. It's being, behaving almost exactly as the last time. So that's interesting. I've seen some people talking about how there's a triangle pattern here. Um, it's possible that there's some sort of triangle here. I haven't done an Elliott wave count to do that. The way that that would look is, assuming that this is a fourth wave, you've got an ABC here that's completed. I would need to recount this as an ABC structure. So it would be A, B, C, D, and then finally you get an E leg here. Each of those subways has to be an ABC pattern. So uh, that's what you'd be looking at if it were a triangle. I've only put up the lines here because what's interesting is I'm finding confluence between uh, the Fibonacci time projection for the next peak being and when this triangle would, theoretically end. So we would obviously be breaking out of it around here. That's when the time projection is saying that we should peak out is around November um, 11th. So I guess the next thing I would be wanting to see, is when are we going to actually start to be moving higher? Because if you notice, once we go past the green, the 100% time projection, we do get this nice little run up here. So it's about halfway there. So, somewhere around end of October, around Halloween, is when I would expect that we get a nice little pump up to test that $50 area of resistance before getting a little pullback and then launching in early November. So things are chugging along. There just hasn't really been a lot to update, and I just don't like saying the same thing over and over in the video. If there's nothing to talk about, I just don't really do much of an update. But just that we've gotten quite a bit of price action here to kind of update y'all on as far as my thoughts is where what price could be doing right now, because we are getting closer to the end of this, I believe. I would highly recommend you sitting down and thinking about your exit strategy, what you're gonna how you're going to exit your positions. Obviously, I can't give you financial advice, and please don't expect me to be around during the squeeze to tell you, okay, now it's time to sell, because I can't do that. It's just not worth the risk to me for somebody saying, if I were to tell somebody to sell it, just arbitrarily number here, 5,000, and then it goes to 10,000 and then I get sued, it's just not something that I'm interested in. So the way that I would approach it is, okay, once I've reached a certain level of profit, given the once in a lifetime nature of this trade, uh, you know, for example, if I make $5 million on this trade and I think it might go to 7, and I'm thinking about closing, well, $5 million is a whole heck of a lot, because no matter what anybody tells you, nobody knows where this thing will stop. You know, there are so many different factors going in. Uh, and personally, I think, well, I'm going to get yelled at for this, but my concern with the computer share thing, it's beneficial for the squeeze, in my opinion, because those shares are getting locked up. But my concern and why I'm not going to do it is because when it comes time to close out those positions, what people are effectively doing is they're taking those shares almost as if they're out of circulation. Because I was looking into it, and I think it was like, if you're trying to sell over $100,000 worth, it takes like 30 days to process or some ridiculous amount. So that's going to create a big lag. So what happens when the squeeze occurs and these people can't sell their positions? You know, I mean, that's going to drive the price even higher, in my opinion, because hedgies are needing to cover their short positions, but all these shares have now been tied up in this computer share thing where people can't just go on and just sell their positions like you would normally do. Um, it's, I mean, it's good for the squeeze, but I feel I'm not comfortable putting my shares, locking them up with computer share, because I don't know whether I'd be able to sell when I want to sell. Um, so those are my thoughts. I don't know how I got on that tangent. I forget the point that I was trying to make. Um, Oh, I was talking about 5 million. Okay, so essentially, my point is that if you're at a point where you've got life-changing wealth, the difference between say $5 million and $7 million isn't a whole lot, because it has completely changed your life. You see what I'm saying? It's not going to. If you have $5 million, having $7 million isn't going to buy you a completely different life. Having the difference between $5 million and $50 million, sure, but if you're at the point where you're now set for the rest of your life, you're good, or this is what I'm thinking in a trade like this. I've made X amount of dollars. Well, now my risk becomes, because nobody knows where this thing is going to top out. People spew all these ridiculous numbers, and I'm sorry, it's just a lot of those numbers. People talk about 500,000. It's not going to happen. I mean, and even if it were to happen, you're talking about it being there for a fraction of a second and a handful of people being able to trade at that price. And it's very likely that a lot of people are going to be at work. They're going to be distracted. They aren't like a full-time trader like myself, where I'm sitting in front of a computer all day monitoring it. So even if it were to hit that 500K mark or 100K mark, it would be there for a fraction of a second and then it would come back down. It's essentially, it would be a wick. How you have for example, a big wick here. Bitcoin has better examples than I've explained in previous videos. Um, so I wouldn't count on it selling at that price, and I wouldn't count on insurance being able to pay every single ape out at that price. Why? Because it's insurance. How many people have been in a car wreck and you think, oh, well, this guy's got a $50,000 policy, I'm going to get $50,000. No, they're going to sit there and negotiate it and lowball you and force it down as much as they can, because they don't want to pay you out top dollar. So, you end up getting a few $1,000s essentially from your insurance policy for the car wreck. So hopefully the point that I'm trying to illustrate is getting across, that if you have, say, 5 million or $10 million that you made in profit, is it worth it to risk life-changing money to sit there and hold out for numbers that are extremely unlikely? You know, it's, and I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to be realistic here and conservative, because if it keeps ripping and ripping and ripping, and I have friends that are brokers, and what ultimately will happen is they'll just halt the trading. And if they foresee it going, let's say hypothetically they foresaw see it going to 100K and just keeps ripping, well, they would halt it and they would end up doing a settlement at a much lower price. That's just the way the world works. They aren't going to crash the entire world economy into the greatest depression we've ever seen just to pay out a few million people that want to get super rich. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Because what you have to look at as these government officials that'll be handling it on the other side is, okay, well, what's more important? 350 million Americans economy affecting them, essentially being in a horrible, deep depression because we need to pay out 2 million, 3 million shareholders these $100,000 prices that they want. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's just not going to happen, in my opinion. And if it does happen at those prices, it's going to be there for a fraction of a second, and a couple of people are going to be able to trade there. And uh, unfortunately, I think a lot of people end up getting kind of screwed by that, because there seems to be this notion in the community of, like, a lot of these big YouTubers that I see, like, we're holding 100Ks the floor. And unfortunately, what I suspect that they're doing is they are trying to get the masses to hold out as long as possible so that they can sell at a much lower price. So I would bet money that these YouTubers are going to be selling in the thousands, maybe 10,000, but they're trying to convince everybody that it's going to go to 500K because they need all these, well, for lack of a better term, dumb money. They need all these dumber money than they are to hold for these absurd prices so that they can guarantee that they get their sell out at a few $1,000s. Um, that's either that or they're just don't know what they're talking about, which is very possible. Um, anyway, kind of getting off on a little tangent there, but hopefully that point gets across, is that, if I'm sitting here and I am at a point where I have life-changing money, it's just not worth it to sit there and risk life-changing money that you will likely never see again for the hope of getting a extra couple $1 million. You see what I'm saying? Don't be greedy, you know? Figure out a number that you're comfortable with beforehand, and that's where you need to do what you decide you need to do. Um, yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to talk about. No, I think that's about it. Just my best advice is to start getting everything planned out, because I don't see this thing going on much longer. I think we're getting really close to the end. Um, so just have your plan ready, whatever it is that you're planning to do when this thing does rip. Um, there's a lot of comfort in knowing where you're going to exit or beforehand. Look at how many shares you have and then think, okay, well, how much money would I have at this price, type of thing. Okay, if it hits here, then I'm good. That's enough money to live a luxury life for me, my family, or pay off whatever bills or whatever it is you need to do. Keep that in mind. I just don't want to see people sitting there and watch it go up and then just watch it come back down and they're still kind of waiting. Anyway, so yeah, I'm thinking here, end of October, beginning of November, this thing's going to rip. The only question is whether how high it's going to rip and whether that will trigger the big squeeze. It's I would say it's highly unlikely that this isn't going to trigger the big squeeze. This was a 1,300% roughly run up from the low to the high. Measuring from here to the high, it was roughly 1,300% run up. If that happens again from here, that would put us at like $400. So, if we see that same increase, I don't see them being able to hold their position. If it goes to 400, I think that is going to absolutely trigger the big squeeze. If for some reason, because I don't know their positions, I don't know any of the specifics, I can't do the whole calculus if I don't have all the variables, so to speak. If it were to happen, I would expect that this cycle would repeat. We'd get another consolidation period, and then it would just rip. But I'm pretty damn sure that if it breaks and gets into the several $100s, that this thing's just going to keep going. So we're getting close. A couple more weeks. Anyway, you have any questions? You know what to do. Drop it down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all of those things, and I'll talk to y'all soon.